All of that said, Sophia's still making her way around. I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and we're going to start with a prayer here in a moment. But I want to explain this picture because I want to get us all into a frame of mind a little bit of context setting perhaps about the mission. So I love the way that it was John that took this picture, that he used light, worked the light in this picture. This little girl named Angie, I'll talk about her a little bit later, and how she's sitting in the light, surrounded by a little bit more darkness, obviously deep in prayer, which is a common posture for them, quite frankly, in front of the Blessed Sacrament. This was the Blessed Sacrament, an outdoor adoration setting that they were doing. But here's the deal. One of my favorite examples of the Trinity, or metaphors, or whatever you'd say about the Trinity, is that the Son, S-O-N, the Son being God, God the source of all, right? So God the Father being Son, S-O-N, then Jesus being the light from the Son, and how the light comes from the Son, comes from God the Father, and Jesus himself enters into our lives as he has here in this picture in my mind's eye of Angie. And then certainly she's basking in the warmth of the Holy Spirit. So here is Angie, basking in the warmth of the Holy Spirit, receiving the light that is Christ, orienting herself towards God the Father. And if you take away nothing else from this conversation, all the things we do in being missionaries and going and doing work, or really supporting them in the work they do, this is really the heart of it all. We go to make Christ present. We go to celebrate their life in Christ and our own lives in Christ. And we all, in Unión de Amor, and the reason that name is so important, in that unity, in that communion with each other, and God the Father, and Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, it is there that we live, breathe, and live, move, and have our being, as Father Len says sometimes. And that is being missionary, to me, to us in Unión de Amor. The rest of it is all activity, and it's all good, and that's what you're going to hear about today, but it all finds its heart here in God's love and in sharing God's love. Does that make sense? So I think it's important that we start there. So, and I'll share this prayer to get us started. You can read the words. And so let's pray this together. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of us, your faithful. Kindle in us the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and we shall be created, and you shall renew the face of the earth. Amen. We are created, and the face of the earth is renewed. That is the fruit of the missionary life that I described in that focus on the Trinity, which we invoke every time we sign ourselves with the sign of the cross. The fruit is that we are created and we renew the face of the earth. And that's through those activities that we find ourselves, all of us, whether it's in prayer or financing or going, all of us find ourselves drawn there in the Trinity. And that's important. I put the little picture on the bottom left there from your perspective. That's Dr. Sonia Cruz. Dr. Sonia traveled with us this time. She goes up to Consolacion, this village we're in, and has office hours periodically. And she did this selfie as we were kind of walking along that trail. But I wanted, again, to rest deeply in that idea that we are created, right? Every day of our lives, as we pilgrimage forward in Christ, we are created and renew the face of the earth. Sorry about that. I'll talk more quiet, step back from the speakers. So, that being said, and with the opening prayer, now I've got Sophia all busy doing raffle tickets, so she's going to come up here scrambled and try and... Sophia, pictured here a minute or two ago, Sophia was one of the early missionaries that traveled with her mother and went to Consolacion. I think this is probably a year after they first went. And she wants to describe, just briefly again, to sort of root us in the before and after. Her experiences of the children of Consolacion, this poor village, poor mountain town, her experiences with them before, and then later on.
Okay. Yeah, so this was back in 2017, so I was a bit younger and taking our yearly vacation to Honduras to visit my family, and my mom basically told us that we were going to visit this poor community, someone that her friend had told her about. And I didn't really think much of it. I was like, okay, we were just traveling around. And as soon as I showed up, I was just, in shock because, I've seen Honduras and it's nothing like here, but this particular little community, it was like, I remember they would tell me to put my hair up because everyone had lice and I wasn't allowed to drink any of the drinks because the water wasn't good. And I just, looking at the kids and they wouldn't look to me, and there was these kids that were my age and I would be like twice their size because none of them had the proper nutrients that they need. We would say hi and they would look and run away. It is like crazy the fact that none of them were not social or anything. And then we proceeded to go back a couple times, and each time I went back, the difference was insane. The first time I thought it was crazy, and they'd all talk to me and come up and say hi. And then this last time that I went, which was about a year ago, everyone wanted to be in the pictures. Everyone was smiling. Girls gave me rings. They told me to remember them. They took pictures with me. It is just heartwarming. But even with everything that we've done, there's still so much left to do. We were actually playing soccer this past time. You can see my hair. It's like all white. That's not gray hair. That's from headbutting the ball too much. But all of the kids, you can see they were playing soccer in Crocs. And eventually, half of them got frustrated and just kicked their Crocs off. And we were playing soccer in this like gravel, dirt kind of thing. And they were just barefoot and they were, full sending it. And it was just crazy to like see how tough these kids are. And the pictures of them praying, these kids are more spiritual than I could ever imagine being. Just watching these 5-year-olds like kneel down and just pray for like hours. And I can't even sit still for that long. And there are these little kids that are they're just so, I don't know, it's just so beautiful. And I just am so thankful that I was able to be a part of this and go visit Consolacion. And it's been a crazy changer in my life.
Thank you, Sophia. And what I hope came through there a little bit is this idea of coming alive. So that was an extension of what we've learned there, is this idea of life in Christ, being the light of Christ, removing obstructions, these things that keep people oppressed. When you remove those things, they come alive, and they come alive in a new way, right? So Sophia and Luisa, especially as they've gone over the years before and after, this community is now alive. It has the life abundant that Jesus promised us in the scriptures. I love this little video. Okay, so I just love that little video as kind of a tail end to what Sophia was describing. So I'm going to talk a little bit again, context setting about, before we get into what we visited this time, a little bit about how the mission is, how we've found our legs and defined ourselves as a mission here at St. Pius. So a little bit about the logistics. There's a picture of us. This was this trip down. Lourdes is a Honduran attorney that helped us with water project stuff. Luisa, whom you'll meet in a little bit, Sophia's mom. Kathleen Hilken, who's here. Ophelia is Honduran. Ophelia and Diana live together. They're consecrated lay people. They really are the heart of the mission. Mary Adele, Sergia, who is Honduran and Luisa's mother. Alejandro, who's an architect, myself, and then Dr. Sonia again. So this was kind of our crew that went this time and visited in the village. We typically stay, there's a hotel, it's only 10 or 12 miles away in a city called Le Paera, but that 10 or 12 miles can take 45 minutes or be impossible. The third day we couldn't get back to the village because of a little rain. And typically we gather there. There's times we've taken school supplies. This is us bagging up some candy for the kids. Black Sheep one year donated like 30 pairs of boots that we took down. We take eyeglasses out of the parish. People leave eyeglasses. We take those down and they get distributed. So usually as we're staying at the hotel, we're packaging some things up to make them available. And then these are kind of the communal meals. So this time, as in others, the first place we usually go is Consolacion, and to do that we stage and we deploy, if you will, out of this little hotel in Le Paera. So in terms of the work we do, and even now providing stuff, we'll still take things, school supplies and some glasses, and if people have their hearts are on it. But honestly, what we've learned, and the same with work, we do some work, like we've done a vacation Bible school kind of thing with the kids. Father Flores and I went down one time and we did 35 baptisms and communion and first communion and things. But typically, we like to see ourselves just in the backup position, right? In the background, cheering them on, lifting them up, financially removing obstacles in terms of their own vision of themselves and stuff, just being proud and having agency. So we don't do a lot of work. We go down and we follow up and we celebrate and we have conversations about their dreams and aspirations. In the end, we want them to be the heroes in their story, and we're kind of just bit players, supporting actors, if you will. It's important that they know that, and that their children know that, right? That we don't come in and we're not there to save the day, or we're not there to teach them how to do something they don't know how to do. These are extremely industrious, hardworking, ingenious people. In this particular case, this village, we got this started. Somebody asked, take me to the poorest of the poor. It was a physician from Tegucigalpa, and I'll say hello to our friends from Tegucigalpa. Here, Astro and Nikki visiting, so the Waylands brought them. So Dr. Rene Fialos is a surgeon in Tegucigalpa, the capital, and he asked, take me to the poorest of the poor. And he was taken to this village because not just the endemic poverty that is everywhere in these rural areas, but they had a history of violence, kind of a Hatfields and McCoy thing, and so that amplified the poverty, and it was hard for them to recover. The kids had interiorized that they were bad people. They said to our kids, why do you visit us? We're the bad people. So this community had really become invisible to each other. They were just a population living together, right? And they'd become invisible to the world around them. We, and I say we, meaning a lot of folks in Honduras and those of us here at St. Pius, made sure that they're no longer invisible, that they are seen, that they recognize they have the dignity of sons and daughters of God, and that we are their brothers and sisters. End of story. That's mission, right? So, anyways, the context, back to the context setting. I will say one last thing on that. I reminded myself, Howard Thurman was a spiritualist back in the 60s, 70s. Anyway, one of his books, he reflects on the adulterous woman, where the crowd brings the woman to Jesus, and Jesus eventually says, is there anybody left to condemn you? She says no, and he says, neither do I. But here's what Howard Thurman closes that reflection with. He, Jesus, believed her into the fulfillment of her possibilities. He stirred her confidence into activity. He placed a crown over her head, which for the rest of her life she would keep trying to grow tall enough to wear. So he stirred her confidence into activity, placed a crown over her head for the rest of her life she would keep trying to grow tall enough to wear. I am not tall enough to wear my crown yet. Many of the people in this world are not. The focus of mission, again, this idea of life abundant and living the Trinitarian lifestyle, is about helping each other grow tall enough to wear those crowns that Jesus gives us. And that's what we do down there. And again, trying to be a bit player in it so that they can rise up and fulfill their own destinies, if you will, their own lives. Okay, a little bit more, and then I'll quit on this stuff. So we don't use any of the parish money for the mission. We've only used dollars that were given for the Honduras mission, just to make sure everybody understands we're not, at this point, we have not really subsidized it in any other way. It's people donate. That money all goes down to Honduras. None of it stays here. When we travel, we've all paid our own ways, have for years. There was a generous donation this year that helped with some of the food while we were down there on mission. and we are thankful for that. But otherwise, all the money that's given to Honduras goes to Honduras and nothing else, just to make sure people have a sense of that. So the rest of the presentation will be about this last trip. So, and it was one of the most impactful times for me. I would say we've done a lot over the years. During the twin hurricanes back in 2020 that went through Honduras, we built some houses down near San Pedro Sula, another major city, because that's where all the water ends up. So we built houses and provided disaster relief, and over the years we've done a lot of things. But it's really the core of our mission has been in this village. And this year, after 7 years, we can just see how obvious it is that everything I've said up till now is true about living Christ and sharing the gospel and seeing it come alive. Hands down, it's just true, and I've seen it here. So, first part of the mission was to visit. Last year for almsgiving during Lent, we funded a work center. The idea of the work center was to do community education and maybe some economic activity. So we took all the sewing machines were the red lines that the red lines helped us box up, and others here. We took all those sewing machines, sent them down. This work center, the sewing machines now are in place down there. There's actually a local nonprofit down there that's going to be providing education to teach the women to sew. And there's a culinary program and a guitar program. We'll talk more about those in a bit. But heading in, we celebrated with the local bishop. So a handful of years ago, we had the first Mass ever there, and now we have the bishop present in this community. So you see just the investment of our Lord's glory in this community now, both through the people and through those that visit. So this is Bishop Walter, and we processed into town together, as we always do, as we do as church. Even when we come to church, we process in, right? So we processed into the village with Bishop Walter, and this is just us along the way, probably a half mile or something down through the community to the lower section of the community, where there's about 5 acres of property that we've been active on. The church owns it, so we're able to do things on it unencumbered. We had a Mass, and Bishop Walter did a beautiful Mass, a beautiful homily, celebrating everything that I described earlier, this idea of Unión de Amor and coming together as community. So we had a very special Mass. And then we had some commentary by Bishop Walter. You'll see those little icons that Diana is holding, and this is Octavio. He's the delegate of the word, kind of like the sacristan for the local chapel. So Don Octavio and Diana are project manager, and then there's one here that was for the bishop. Those are icons that our bishop, Bishop Peter, wrote that icon, and it hangs in the seminary in St. Paul. But these are copies that Bishop Peter had us take down and give to them. And you can see here, which we'll talk about in a little bit, there's a whole basket of coffee here as part of the gifts. Well, let me tell you, we worked hard. Kathleen worked hard for that coffee. That's 50 cents worth of labor right there. That's exactly what that translates to. We still owe her a check. So anyway, we were processed in. You can see behind them, then that's the new work center. Let me check my notes. It was cute, the one thing that Oralia, who's a community leader down there now, she, in her comments, she said, "Who are we to have the bishop, the highest whatever person in our church, come visit us?" And Bishop Walter said, "Who am I? Who am I to be here with these people?" A very humble man. A little background, if anybody heard about the Eucharistic miracle in Honduras last year or whatever, it was actually in Bishop Walter's diocese, about an hour from where we're at. Closer to where Maya, who's sitting over here, Maya is from the local community, but she's been teaching in Honduras for a number of years and is going to go back here pretty soon. And she'll be back. So anyway, so celebrating and having Mass, and then Mary's going to talk briefly about this particular photo.
How many people live in that?
So Mike asked how many people live. So there's one data source that I could find that kind of lists communities. Who knows how accurate? In that thing, it said 380, I think is what it said for Consolacion. about 110 families, 380 people. That's what it looks like. What we'll talk about in a minute is the surrounding area. So what's happening now is this has become a center. So Consolacion, who was invisible to the world and were the bad people. One elderly woman told me, we were hate, you made us into love. So that community that was invisible now is a shining light for, there's about 10 communities in this mountain area, and that's 5,000 or 6,000 people. So yeah, we'll see where the mission goes, but for right now it was centered on this community. Go ahead, Mayor.
I'm just going to talk very briefly on this slide. And if you were here at the weekend masses last weekend, I talked briefly on this slide and why this moment was very, very important to me. And I got very emotional at that moment when the bishop unveiled that plaque because, as I said last weekend, it was something we did not expect and didn't ask for. But what it does represent, that logo, see in our parish logo, to me represented we. And you hear a lot today a saying we. It's not we with the shirts on, it's we. And at that moment, I'm like, I just started crying because I said, wow, they get that. It's a cumulative, collective we. It's not just us. So that was just a very important moment for me. So as a matter of fact, that afternoon, we all sat in a circle, kind of had like an affirmation circle with the U.S. and Honduran teams, and with the leadership, their new leadership of their community. And as Aurelia spoke, one of the women that Chris was just speaking about, she looked, I will never forget, the piercing look in her eyes. Piercing, we have the language barrier, right? And she was looking piercingly in the eyes. And she said, through Louisa, who was our very faithful and patient interpreter, we owe her a lot. But she said, Unión de Amor is our family. Unión de Amor has changed our lives. You will always be our family. So it was kind of like bringing that song together, We Are Family. It was like this, we are family. And you just felt that so strong. And after we spoke last weekend after the masses, one parishioner came up to me and said, I'll never get to Honduras. I'll never get there. But that all of you are the bridge for us. And that was, again, that we. And I felt that logo represented that bridge and that we.
Awesome. So the plaque itself, somebody just asked what it says. So it has, this is like work center for sewing and for a kitchen. St. Pius X Catholic Church, and then the diocese over here is Bishop Walter and some others. And then over here it's Parochios Pio X, the parish of St. Pius X, and it has Father Len McMillan, Chris Stewart, Louisa Becker. And then, I'll say this now, I was going to say it later as a punchline somewhere, but you'll notice here it says Aldea, village, Nueva Consolación La Paera. So this is Consolación, always has been Consolación. Well, now it's Nueva Consolación. So they renamed themselves about a year ago to New Consolation. So they recognize that they are a new community. So literally this idea of newness. I hope that comes through today, because I can't explain the sort of mystical side of this. We can talk about work and what we do and et cetera, but there is a sacred part of this that just has been truly, has come alive for me anyway. So that's Bishop Walter. So I put this in here. Here's a little name tag. She's doing sewing, Roxana. So as we were headed down, there was a lot of people that had these name tags. 135, so we built this center, right? And a lot of this is built on just knowing it's going to happen. The Holy Spirit will handle this. But immediately when we started opening the rolls, if you will, 135 people signed up from 8 of those 10 communities up in that mountain area. So 135 people signed up, and we kind of cut it off at that point because we need to know we can walk before we run and we can do things well. That was advice given to me very early on by another missionary group out of Texas. Do what you can do what you can do well, and then move forward. Anyway, so they made the decision down there to lock it out at 135 students. And then, as I said, there's a nonprofit that's going to help with some of the sewing classes. And then we have a religious order that's kind of moved into the area, the Mercadarians. They've been there for literally, I think, centuries. But they've come back to Le Paera. The priest there is Mercadarian, and then there's religious sisters that are going to serve the community too. So they've been teaching in the kindergarten. They'll support us in the work center. So then we went into the work center, just kind of had a little tour with the bishop, and this is the priest from Le Paera, a Mercadarian brother. He looks all of like 10, but he's not. It was awesome. And then these are the sewing machines, actually. They have some covers on them. Somebody custom made these wonderful tables for all these sewing machines. So this half of the shop is all set up for the sewing. You see the power generated from the ceiling. It was custom designed power because they realized they needed it for the machines. Here's our Unión de Amor guitars. These were sponsored, I think, by the prayer groups in Honduras. There's a couple of different prayer groups that have adopted Consolación and the mission. So we do, there's food drives, there's feasts, there's Christmas, there's all these things that happen with various groups. And they donated the guitars that all have the Unión de Amor logo on them. I think it's very clever where the heart is a guitar. And then this is the circle that we did, sort of affirmations, but really just kind of understanding, okay, is what we did good? Did it hit the mark? Did it miss the mark? Again, this isn't about us telling them what they need or how they should do it. This is about us listening and listening deeply and just removing obstacles and allowing them to grow tall enough to wear that crown that all of us seek to do. So anyway, we did have a great conversation. I mentioned particularly, I thought we were such a small part, and you'll see why I say that in a minute. And Don Bartolo, one of the leaders, said, yeah, but you're the mustard seed. If nothing else, you're the mustard seed. You provide the impetus for a lot of it. So they're very complimentary. As Mary said, we are family for them now. So it's a good thing. So the next one, and I'm trying to keep this into a reasonable time. I think we're flowing pretty good. Is everything okay? There's probably more coffee back there. Did John bring more coffee? Yeah, so there's more coffee if anybody wants it. So a little bit of a step back. So this is before we built the work center. This is a kindergarten building we built sometime. I don't remember now the order of things. So the kindergarten we built, this is their chapel, Our Lady of Fatima Chapel. So the roof had gone bad and the water was eroding the walls. So the parish, we came alongside them and helped fund some of the reconstruction of it. They did all the work. They did a wonderful job. I don't think I have any pictures. There's one at the end of the inside. They did a beautiful job. So we remodeled the chapel, we built the kindergarten, and now this work center is in this part of that parking lot. So those three buildings are kind of in a little bit of a town square kind of feel. And then you see there's parking that's developed here. The church still owns this bit of land. And then it cuts off somewhere in here. So that's what, and then, so yeah, you see the work center, the work center. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And then this is the side of the chapel. So this side of the chapel, I just found this so touching. So overlooking all of it, right? Overlooking all of it is this divine mercy Jesus. In Jesus we trust. I have another picture. I should have used that one with two little girls sitting down at the foot of it, staring up in prayer. So in Jesus we trust over at the compound. So here's another example of life abundant. We used to go, and we'd go to the village. We spent all day talking about what we're going to do to fix their water problem, what we're going to do to fix their coffee problem. And we catered in meals, and we did an awful job at it. So we catered in 20, 30 meals, something like that. And then we realized, there's, as I said, 300 people that live here, and we have 24 meals. What are we going to do? So it was very uncomfortable, and we would have done that differently in hindsight. But the point being, we ordered in meals to provide for those of us that were having the meetings. This year, they fed, meaning the community. I looked over, and at one point there's these people bustling in with activity and others directing them, a lady named Undina primarily, who's developed as a leader. They fed 600 people. So we had to bring in food just to provide for a few of us that were having meetings however many years ago. Now they serve 600 people. So it's this idea of coming alive and this life abundant that has just blossomed down there. Checking the notes. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So that's the work center and the property where we've been active, and the story as it was this last trip down. We're going to switch to water. And we did a water project in Consolacion, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is another water project that Kathleen's going to say a few words about. She actually was moved to fund. This is a water tower they needed to complete a project in Santa Rita, which is a neighboring community just up the road. So we went to Santa Rita, and I did a blessing. This is Kathleen, this is me, the mayor of La Paeta, I think. And we did a blessing and then a ribbon cutting at this new water tower. And Luisa kissed babies. So, Kathleen, did you want to?
Hi, my name's Kathleen Hilton, and maybe about a year ago I reached out to Chris. Oh, sorry. Maybe about a year ago I reached out to Chris because I'm going to try not to be emotional, because I had it in my heart to do something bigger and greater than just giving on Sunday and so on. And I said to Chris, maybe something abroad that, something greater than Americans, all of us are so spoiled, right? And so he said, well, we do this project down in Honduras. He told me a little bit about it, and he said, I'm going to have you meet up with Luisa, who is kind of our guru down there. And so Luisa and I sat down, and long story short, after I kind of tried to take it bite by bite, I thought, why here, why this place? And honestly, it's because this is where God sent me. And so anyway, I went down this year, and the one thing I came away with is we take so many things for granted. And, I tried to, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. I tried to envision myself, having a gallon of water maybe. And do I clean my children? One of my children is sick. How do you clean them and make them safe? How do I cook dinner? How do I do? So, and Auralia, who we've spoken about, she's a force, let me tell you. This one has 6 children. She's about a size 2. And she told me, she said, I had to walk 2 miles to get water. And she said, I couldn't take my kids with me. Some of them were really small, so the other kids had to watch them. And imagine being a mother and having to hope that no one takes advantage of your children while you're gone, and so on and so forth. So this has really, really changed her life. And of course, I didn't know all this till I went down. But someone said, how much is it, or I said, how much is it to give this next community some water? Because there's a little bit of jealousy going on, because the next community, they want their water too. So I said to Chris, well, how much is that? And he said, oh, $3,000 to $4,000. And I said, okay. And so I left and I thought about it. And to be honest with you, $3,000 or $4,000 in our lives means something, but it completely changed their life. They have water. So, and they still don't have a ton of water. They still have to ration, and it's not easy. But, they have water. And, little things like Auralia, who has worked so hard. I mean, these people dug 3 miles just to put the pipe in. And we bushwhacked, and it's not easy, let me tell you. And Auralia, the one with 6 kids and so on, after she's done all this, she doesn't have, they call them like little holding tanks. What do they call them, Louisa? Anyway, so when they do get water, if you don't have something to hold it or to reserve it, then you're out the next day, right? So I said to Louisa, I said, well, how much is one of those things? And she said, like $250, $260. And I thought, oh, dear Lord. When we think about what we have and we turn on our spigot. So obviously I came home much more impassioned, and, I just can't say enough the good that St. Pius has done. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, the other thing that kind of hit me was there are so many places in the world that we can help, right? How do you pick where you're going to put your time, money, and love? And although this cause has been brought to our church, so I'm suggesting this. But you know, I heard a phrase right before we left, and I don't even remember where I heard it, but they said there are no borders in heaven. And when I think about water, and I think about the lack of water, and I've heard this in other communities and parts of the world, I think to myself, gosh, we can do better than this. You know, as a world, we can do better. We're putting people on, you know, different planets, and yet a lot of people don't even have the water to fix dinner or to clean up. So anyway, the little water hut there, I funded that, our family funded that, because I felt like, you know, there is gonna, and there will continue to be some jealousy between communities, so we don't want to just help one community, we want to help the region. And then the coffee, should I talk about the coffee at all? Oh, okay.
I'm going to finish water, and then we'll bring her back. She was the queen coffee picker, so she wants to come up and brag. Kathleen is from Priest River, so her experience picking coffee is really from picking huckleberries, so she had a leg up, so don't kid yourself. So Santa Rita, separate little side gig, in part because we are getting just drawn into other communities. As I said, that work center now, 8 of the 10 communities in that area signed people up. We were very bold this time about saying Consolacion has responsibility for this, but it's for all of you. Again, in part to make sure that that we were doing the right thing, right? They're all God's children. So this is the larger water project for Consolacion that we did for a couple of years. And actually this closed out last year, but now going there and visiting it, I had to talk about it because it's another example of, for me, it was like, oh my God, you people did all this. So the village of Consolacion is actually up here. Where we were just showing you the work center is in this little place here. There's kind of an upper area of Consolacion and a lower area of Consolacion. So like what Kathleen described, Oralia lives down in the lower level. So if we turn on the water, the lower level wasn't getting as much as the upper level, so they've actually bifurcated the system. And anyway, there's all these tricks and things that are developing. But the system itself, so we came, Honduras, or World Vision Honduras came alongside. So we had all these engineers from World Vision Honduras, our own engineers, we had some hydrologists, we had to get legal people involved because now you have to secure the rights of way. This was like a major deal. It isn't, in Santa Rita is like a couple of tanks and they're holding water, but this is like this expansive system. We have set up a water district. Oralia is the president of the water district. They're setting up fee schedules, and they say, so it's this whole thing so that it's sustainable and so that it continues to work for everybody, not just a limited few, which is what's happened in the past. So there's this huge effort. This is the lower water tank, and then there's these 2 gathering points in these year-round springs. Those gravity feed down to the lower tank. That's this tank with the solar arrays that power a pump on the roof. So these feed down into this lower one, and then from this lower tank, it pumps up, I think John said it was 1,500 feet. It's quite a bit of elevation change to the upper tank. This is Kathleen and Luisa standing on the top of the upper tank, so you can kind of see the vista there. And then from there, it gravity feeds down into Ala Consolacion. So all of that, if you can picture it, it's very hard dirt, very tough digging. There's the engineering, the legality, all of it. It's just such a huge thing. And there were many partners. This is just a ravine where the water was channeled over, and you can see how steep it is. It was really tough terrain. So we walked down to the one collection station just to get a sense of it. Here with Orlando, our guide. So these are looking back to when they were digging. So this village that was atomized, the population lived together but didn't work together on much. It actually, as some people said, you don't understand, this is the place where you used to go to get drunk, right? This community was not pulled together. They have pulled together over the last few years. They are truly a community. And over and above that, you have the people we've mentioned, Don Dina and Oralia, Don Bartolo, Don Octavio. You have these people that have stepped up into leadership positions. And as I said, we primarily Diana Sanchez, our project manager, she makes sure they're guided in that direction so that this place is able to live, breathe, and have its movement or whatever, all on its own. So you see just how many people are out here digging day in and day out. The community would come out and dig. The children would come out and dig. The women would either be digging or hauling water to support them. And then this was just a surveying picture. Because, as Kathleen said, I have pictures of Oralia where she'd walk her 2 miles. A lot of the women would have to do that at 3 or 4 in the morning, pre-dawn. A lot of them were subject to sexual predators, sexual violence because of the way the town was. Meanwhile, their kids are at home. It's just unbelievably. So they all stepped up. We stepped up, and you have this water system that's just kind of an incredible feat to me. I can't say enough. This is Oralia standing on the top of the upper tank. And this is actually where I'd made a note to talk about Oralia and her leadership. She is so humble, so thankful. So the mayor of Le Paera, and you have to understand the politics there are pretty rough and tumble politics in Honduras. And the local mayor had committed to the water project, or to the work center project, and then he kind of backed away and didn't support it. A little bit of sand. So then he came back and he said, hey, Oralia, I want a sign up that shows that the city of Le Paera is supporting it. And she actually told him, no, I'll pay you for the sand if you want, but you're not getting the sign. It goes to the church and it goes to Unión de Amor because they're the ones that are doing the work. So Oralia, in a sense, to be able to stand up in front of a male, and it's a sort of male-dominated sort of, historically anyway, to do that just speaks to her strength, her character, and how far she's come as a leader. Not without some repercussions. We're working through those. And then this is Orlando. Orlando drove us around, took care of us, but more importantly, he's done a lot of the construction-related activities, whether it goes all the way back to the chapel or especially on the work center. And Orlando, so he's always there, always doing work, always supportive. He kind of wants to start I'd call it a handyman business, a jack-of-all-trades business, so we'll see. We may end up helping him. I don't know if we do micro-lending or something to make sure we support him in pursuing his dreams. So just a goofy picture to kind of transition to the next section here. So this is on our way back from checking out the water. So we're all walking. There's Oralia, myself. Dr. Renee gave me his hat because I was getting sunburned. There's Mary, who's laughing at my hat. Louisa, I don't know, maybe she's dumping water on Mary. Ilana, who traveled with us from Sandpoint. Dr. Sonia, Sergia, and Lourdes, the attorney. Just a nice picture that shows in Orlando's truck. Orlando took us four-wheeling to get us to the water sources. So here's the next section, and I'll let Kathleen speak about it here in a second. I'm going to start the first two. Yes? It's surface water. There's surface water, and somebody told me, John might know when he gets back how many gallons per minute. It's year-round, but right now it's surface water. It pulls out into some cisterns that are layered with filtration, so it gets filtered at the head end, and then it gravity feeds down to the tank. Yeah. No, it's springs. Springs, yeah, terribly mountainous area, right? So they get a lot of rain. The mountains act like sponges. Comes out those two springs, yeah. So hopefully it'll be good. Yeah, eventually. So this is Tito and Ligia, who we mentioned at Mass today. So this story will take a minute. So Tito here is 27, 28. I kind of got lost. I think it was 28 years old. And Ligia is his novia, his girlfriend. So back in 5 years ago or so, all the coffee fields had kind of been wiped out by a fungal blight. So a lot of people lost their living. And Tito was one of them. Tito and his brother who had finca, they call them fincas, coffee farms, So their fincas were wiped out. So he was put in a tough position with his brother, and the options were, I might do cows, so a cattleman kind of thing. I might do hardware, or I might go to the United States now that my coffee's gone. We'll just bag it and go to the States. So those were the three choices on his table. So this is a picture of Sergia. That's Diana Sanchez, our project manager, and then Sergia is Lisa's mother. Sergia and her husband, Don Ovidio, powerhouses in Honduras, have built a wonderful family. We'll talk about that in a moment, and had a huge impact, both of them, on this group of men that went down to Danlí, where she is from. So this is in Danlí, which is down near the Nicaraguan border, to get some technical support, to pick up some new seeds, to replant their coffee fields, and then they got some coaching, some mentoring along the way we'll talk about. So this is them at a restaurant that Sergia owns. They have 2 or 3 restaurants, I think 3 restaurants, and they have a commercial bakery, Sergia and Ovidio do, that sells all over the world to expat Hondurans and such. So extremely successful, but they didn't start that way. But they have built a life for themselves. So they connected deeply with everybody, but especially with Tito there while they were in Danlí. So in Danlí, they met with, this is Luis's dad actually, Don Ovidio, rest his soul, Don Ovidio passed. So, and this is a coffee expert down there, and then this is the team from Consolacion. So they got technical assistance, this is how you do fertilizer, blah, 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 I have no idea. But they got technical support from him, and then he sold them seeds, which was a really high quality, fungal resistant, mid-altitude coffee, which you drank today. So these are little pots. They brought the seeds back in. That's the chapel I showed you earlier. So they planted the seeds. Again, this is about 4 or 5 years ago. They became seedlings over time. They nurtured them. They covered it all with these, you see these little awnings they built and covered it so that it would be shaded. They continued to grow until they were of a size that they were able to replant them. So there was this whole process of planting 100,000 seedlings. So they planted 100,000 seedlings. Now this year, as we went back, after we got off the truck, this is Kathleen rubbing our nose in her coffee picking abilities. I'm not resentful. And then these are the coffee plants now, right? They're full maturity. This was the first year that they had a harvest. So he had harvested most, but he left a handful of plants so that we could pick them. So 5 years later, Tito was thinking of us, and so we got to pick the last of the first fruits off of these, and then the rest of it he's selling, and then some of that is what we're drinking today, the coffee from there. So that's Auralia and Lourdes and others helping us pick coffee. Do you want to chat?
Oh, it is? Oh. You know, the one thing that hit me, and this is apparent here, is that they don't really want us to come and provide for them. They are so appreciative for the finances and the chance to have it, but they are so proud of themselves, as they should be, because they have worked so incredibly hard. And this is an example. And we have a quest to try to figure out, okay, how would we distribute that in the U.S. and to try to maximize the money that they make in that. Because, of course, most South American countries have coffee plantations. So that's the one thing I want to say to everybody. They are not sitting back waiting for us to do things for them. They are doing them, yeah. And they don't want to come to the United States. Aurelia's husband is over in the U.S. with her son, and they just didn't have a choice. They couldn't make money there. Their family was starving. So she said, no, we want to stay here. You know, we want to have our life here with our family. So that's what we're hoping to help them with.
So I'm going to do one more quick slide, and then Luisa is going to share a little bit about Tito in a conversation. So again, Kathleen, Luisa, Tito, myself, Mary, Auralia, and Diana. And this was kind of, you'll see this is the packaging that's on the coffee we brought back with our label. And he put on here un esfuerzo de hermanos, a work of brothers, Tito fully intends, it wasn't just our brotherhood, Tito intends, we got them together, the coffee growers, they actually signed an association a handful of years ago, but then COVID and everything, that's kind of gone stale. But Tito's going to revisit that and try and get everybody together in more of a cooperative environment so they can have greater strength in the marketplace. So that's why he has this un esfuerzo de hermanos, the work of brothers, trying to pull some of the other finca owners into that. This was just a great trip. So, Luisa, I'm going to hand this off to you. This is Don Ovidio. This is Sergei's house. And most of the family, Luisa's family, all the girls, Ovidio Jr. was off working. But they have just built a wonderful family. As I said, Don Ovidio passed not too long ago. But Tito, when we were picking coffee, I saw Tito having a very heart-to-heart talk with Luisa. Maybe she can help us understand what all Tito got from Ovidio, her father.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So just before church, Tito's picture was on the screen, so I sent him a picture, and he says, "Oh, what a cool presentation that's gonna be." So he's no, so he knows we're talking about him today. So I knew that they went to Danli. I knew that they met with my parents, and that my dad taught them a lot of things. But what he was sharing with me is that this decision he had to make of getting into maybe buying cows, or doing a hardware store, or coming to the U.S. And he says that my dad told him, do the hardware store. What are you going to do in the U.S.? You have everything to be successful here. And he told Tito his story, how he had nothing, and from nothing, he now had all these beautiful things that he was seeing. And he encouraged him not to look for the American dream, but to look for the Honduran dream. And so I couldn't help start crying because my dad just passed away, like he says, 4 months ago. And he never got the chance to hear the story, but I'm sure he's listening now. How you can impact somebody just by doing something good, just by giving you the best example. We gave them love. We tried to give them everything we can. We help them with material things, and we have no idea the impact that all this is doing for them. So when he was telling me that, I cried a lot. And I'm just so thankful that he was part of Unión de Amor, just like all of you are part of Unión de Amor, because we help in different ways. We, the team from United States, and there's a team in Honduras, and every single person is important. So you that are here right now, sitting with us, listening to the story, is because God called you to this. This is not because I want to go and just see what, it's God calling you. That's what I believe. And so thank you for being here, and thank you for saying yes, because I'm sure all of you are going to say yes today to what God is calling us to do. And just the impact that we're doing in this little community, that is like the domino effect, that's how you say it. You know, it's just like spreading, and the love is spreading not just in Consolación, but in like 10 different communities close by, and now even in Danli. So we want to spread Unión de Amor also in the U.S. So this is us here, and thank you for being here. It feels, my heart feels happy today. Thank you.
Okay, so what about those hardware stores? So Tito has 3 hardware stores now in some cities surrounding Consolación, and he has 12 warehouses that serve those 3 stores. So it turns out that Don Ovidio was right. Hardware was the right way to go. So we went and visited him at one of his stores down there anyway. So yeah, that's Tito's story. Yeah, he has his thing. That's where this coffee is from. Yeah, it's coffee. But the messaging from Don Ovidio was coffee is seasonal and it's weather dependent. You can have a bad year. So you got to do something to level out the revenue stream. So hardware was the choice. Phil. So normally, so the question was if they roast the coffee themselves or bring it here. So normally they sell it in what they call as a gold status or whatever. So it's all the way through drying and whatever, just prior to roasting. And then they sell it, commercially they sell it in the gold. He roasted this and gave it to us roasted. So they have the capacity to do that. And places down there do, but yeah. We'll see. Next year, he'll have a lot more coffee. And Ovidio Jr., Ovidio, Luis's brother, is actually helping him get it rated properly and connecting him with some of the commercial outlets, again, because they have kind of a presence in the marketplace. Luisa's mom, if I'm going to get this right, Luisa, your mom was one of the 7 top women entrepreneurs in Honduras a couple of years ago now. So because of their restaurants and all that they've done. But again, from nothing to something because of hard work, ingenuity, and they're just a wonderful couple, or rest their souls. So that's Ovidio. Mary Adele is going to talk about Tito. I don't know what's going on here, but whatever. He's a young, good-looking Latin guy.
I love Tito. Truly, though. This was us saying goodbye. But one of our team members took this picture and sent a little text and said, "Look at Tito's face." But you know what? If you turned that picture around, my face looked the same way. It was like, oh, Tito. It was just this kinship, this feeling of, again, that we're one family, united in love. No, we didn't speak the same language, but we spoke the same language. It was really that. So anyway, I just really felt the need to speak of that and the mutual love of our mission, of the we again. And I'll just go back to the basket of coffee that was offered at that Mass. And Kathleen, I picked some coffee too. I know, Kristen. No, that was a blast, and actually it was an honor that they left that for us to do. But anyway, going back to the Mass, it just really felt that offering that coffee, again, that was another sign of the unity of us working together as one family, offering it to God. It was very sacramental. It was God in our midst offering that coffee.
Awesome. Okay, we're getting down to it, I promise. Actually, I'm going to almost end where I began. So this is a picture of our chapel, or their chapel, the interior of it. They did this beautiful parquet floor. This is Leslie, I think her name is. She's actually the daughter of Auralia, one of Auralia's daughters. And here's Angie again, when they were in front of the Blessed Sacrament. You know, one story about Angie, I don't know where she got the money, but she went out and got candy for us. She said, I got money and I went to the store. So Angie came back and she was coming around to all the missionaries giving us candy. So all these years that we had brought things, right? But here was this child of God bringing us and returning those gifts. So again, life abundant, life had changed. Actually, I had a note on here. And I think that was the life abundant piece. Angie and her candy, the leadership and the work completed down there in the village, the size and scope of the water project, Tito's story, the 135 people now signed up for the work center, and then them changing their name from Consolacion to Nueva Consolacion. Life abundant through Christ's present. Christ's presence in the Eucharist, in the Blessed Sacrament, Christ's presence in the community, in us all. So these are more futures, just to give you a snapshot on what is absolutely next. So we need to continue to support the kindergarten. There's one of the Mercadarian sisters helping out in the kindergarten. We need to continue to support the kindergarten and probably the work center with some kind of staffing, but at least help support the classes that are delivered. And Little by little, a fee schedule will take over and everything, but still we need to make sure we're there and we hold things up. This is a Emmaus house, we're calling it, a retreat center. So now we have all these people going up there for teaching and lots of different reasons. We've had lots of professionals in and out of the community, and now the Mercadarian sisters and brothers, the priests. So we want to do a retreat house, a place where they can stay in overnight, because getting there is sometimes impossible in the rain, but at the very least it's difficult. So if they could spend a couple of days. That goes for our Honduran missionaries as well. This is Diana. We need to continue to support Diana. We do a stipend to Diana, so every 6 months to cover expenses. She lives in Tegucigalpa, so it's 5-6 hour drive, I think is what it was, on very tough roads. She stays in the hotel there in La Pera, so we cover those expenses for her and then for others that she takes along with her, engineers, architects, whoever's needed. So supporting. This is more staff or whatever, and then the next capital project will be this retreat center that we hope to put together and build there. Don Octavio, the delegate of the word, the sacristan, he's donating a piece of property next to the chapel to do that. So they step up, we step up, make things happen. I'm going to talk briefly about this. So this is in Tegucigalpa. So it's Instituto Hector Pineda Ugarte, HPU, they call it. It's a high school in Tegucigalpa, and so we've provided computers and things over the years. This is a performing arts program that Ophelia is deeply invested in at the thing. But here's the deal. So they did concert for us. It was beautiful, wonderful. It was their time off school, so we only had part of them there. There's I forget how many. There's a lot of kids in this program. We had a handful. It's an orchestra, a band, and a dance troupe. But half of them are deaf. So it's a performing arts program that includes the deaf. So your reaction is like mine. So here's the story I would offer from a faithful perspective. It shouldn't work in our mind's eyes and everything that we know. It should not work. Who would imagine, other than a prophet, who would imagine taking deaf people and people that can hear, throwing them together in a band? Doesn't make any sense. It makes sense only in God's eyes. And through a prophetess like Ophelia that can imagine such a thing being possible. So we've supported them. We gave them computers and things during COVID to keep them active in their education. This year, and I don't know the whole story, and Luisa may be able to shed some light, we stepped up and said we'd pay for an interpreter in the school itself so we could in part create some videos and things for the kids, because the state hadn't stepped up, wouldn't hire an interpreter. But apparently they made some kind of a video once we did that, and it went viral and it embarrassed the state, so the state paid for it. So that money's being redirected now somewhere else. But we've continued to support HPU, and it's just wonderful. This guy's stone deaf and just a drummer and does a great job. Full of life, these kids. So we'll continue to support HPU, I'm sure. And Luisa talked about this a little bit. This is Consolacion, our small village in the mountains. Tegucigalpa, which is the capital. I mentioned San Pedro Sula, where we did some housing and things after the hurricanes. A lot of the water flooded that way. Anyway, so Consolacion. Danli is where Luisa's family is from. You can see it's really close to the Nicaraguan border. They have kind of a flood of refugees from all over the world that come in through Nicaragua now and make their way north. And Danli's kind of doubled in size because of some of that traffic. But anyway, normally about 150,000 people. Father Rafael Flores has a parish there. And Father Raphael came to us. The little community around his parish is called New Hope. He says, the irony is there is none, no hope. So he says, all I've heard about Unión de Amor, and hope and life and all that, can you help me figure that out for my community? So we sat down with Father Raphael. I served a mass with him, actually. He did a healing mass. We had a wonderful mass. We sat down with him and just talked about coming alongside Father Raphael. So again, we'll continue to support Consolacion, continue to make sure we do that, but also looking to continue with HPU, and then maybe in Danli, and other things that we've done along the way, quite frankly. So we shall be created and you shall renew the face of the earth. This is in the rectory in Lake Bayetta at the church there. Some of the sisters and some of the brothers and just all of us having a meal one evening. But hopefully that's what came out here. As somebody said, you are all part of this Unión de Amor, this communion of people that are willing to offer themselves, maybe in whatever way, shape, or form, through prayer, for fasting, through alms, for the life of others. And by that, we get created. We receive the graces of that, which is why you always hear people that do good things, they always say, I got more than I received. That isn't just a cliche, that's real. When you give, you receive more than you gave. And you know that, but you don't know that. You don't realize. That's God speaking to your heart and speaking to you deeply, giving you grace to do more so that he creates us, and that's how the face of the earth is renewed. So saith the deacon. Does How about the team? Any closing comments from the team? Okay, we've kept you. The presentation was just over an hour. It wasn't too bad. Oh, we got to pick the raffle winners. Bring up the raffle tickets. That's awesome. And the coffee. I almost forgot. I was going to keep it to myself. So we'll do the raffle. The almsgiving basket will stay right where it's at so you can't miss it on the way by. Please feel free to help us out there. We've got a lot to do, as you can see. All right, go for it. Don't look.
There's no names.
All right, ticket number 1, 391181. Kathy Fremgen. Nice. It's really important that Kathy wins. She's got a lot of video of some years where I was not necessarily well behaved. So it's good that Kathy won. All right, do another one. Dan's trying to bid her up. Okay, so a green one this time, 703763. Nice! Carol. That's awesome. All right, I'm going to go in for another one here. No, you can't put it back in there. Did you see that? She's trying. Okay, a white one this time. 391198. No? 198? What happened there? Did somebody leave? All right, must be present to win. 391186. There we go. It's Larry. Nice. So I think that's 3, if I'm counting correctly. 391155. Oh, Charlene. Check that ticket. I don't trust her. Okay, green one, 703760. All right, Claudia and David. And then we got the last one. If I can do it without spilling them. It's a green one, 703755. Oh, John, nice. Very good. All right, yeah, any questions, any burning questions? I'm going to go ahead and post the video, and then we're always around if anybody has questions about the mission or whatever. Again, I want to thank these folks from Tegucigalpa, our Honduran brothers and sisters. And it looks like Maya left, but Maya, I wish her well back in Honduras. So thank you guys. Oh yes, and then Chef Connie. Thank Connie so much for all the food. Thank you, Connie. And Sophia and Luis also for the food. Thank you.